Welcome to the Whiskey Explorer. Thanks so much for tuning in for another episode, guys. And tonight we've got a very exciting bottle for you. We have got none other than Stagg Batch 22A. Alright guys, so now I'm going to have to get used to not calling this Stagg Junior. Of course, they've dropped the Stagg Junior on this particular expression from Buffalo Trace, and now we just know it as Stagg. And of course, the Stagg Senior would just be called George T. Stagg. So this is Stagg Batch 22A, and what they are doing now is they are basically putting out, I think that it is at least 2 releases a year of the Stagg. And then the 22 denotes the year, so this is from 2022. This is the first batch from that year, and then the B batch will be the second. So of course we're already on to probably the 23A and B at this point, but this is the one that, the most recent one that we were able to acquire, and it's actually on loan to us from our friend of the channel and a close friend of mine, Kyle. Thanks so much for the bottle loan on this one, Kyle. And guys, believe it or not, this one comes with a story. And this time it's not my story. This is a story about Kyle. And believe it or not, Kyle actually drank about 90% of this bottle out of a red Solo cup in a hotel lobby while he was going to the Morgan Wallen concert. Now, I'm confused by his tactics, but I'm just going to keep acting tough until I figure it out. So without further ado, let's get into the bourbon itself here, guys. Let's look at the specs here. We have got a alcohol by volume of 66.1%. Boy, that's hot. That's 132.2 proof, and this is, of course, barrel proof, so non-chill filtered, not colored, and this is basically you're getting the full force of the bourbon here. Stagg Junior is thought to be about 8 to 9 years old. Stagg. I've got the habit of calling it Stagg Junior. I've just known it for so long as that, it's hard to kind of shake that habit, but yes, this one here is unchill filtered, uncolored, so we're going to get the full bourbon experience here, which is great because that without the filtration, we're kind of left with all of the esters and proteins and flavor molecules that contribute to that bold bourbon flavor that we love. So without further ado, let's get into the color in the glass here, guys. This is dark, so we've got a very nice kind of rich, dark mahogany tone to this. Looks very inviting in the glass. That looks fantastic. I did actually let this breathe for about 10 minutes before starting the review. So especially for something that is barrel proof, that's sort of a good practice. And we're going to just kind of rotate it around the glass here a little bit as well. Just kind of make sure we have a nice coating. So that's another little technique you guys can do if you're not kind of loving the swirling thing. There's, just roll it in your hands like that and you'll actually coat the whole glass. And that's a good way to get out like a really good nosing on the bourbon. So speaking of which, let's go in for a nose here, guys. On the nose, cheers. Oh, wow. So this is like the sweetest candy version of a Dr. Pepper. So cherry, vanilla Coke, just love that. Really quintessential for me. I get this always on a Buffalo Trace product. That nice like cola hit, and I don't really get it on other bourbons, so it's nice to always kind of come home to Buffalo Trace and find that flavor note. Really nice on the nose, like definitely like a candied version or a concentrated syrup version of like Dr. Pepper here on the nose. Just vanilla in spades, butterscotch, caramel, brown sugar. A hint of spice in the background, so there's a little bit of clove, nutmeg, baking spices hanging out in the back. Super inviting nose, really rich. Again, that confectionery, syrupy, kind of sugary note. Cherry, vanilla. Just smells fantastic. So I'm going to dive into this one here, guys. On the palate, cheers. Wow, that is just a flavor punch. Really bold, assertive, right off the hop. You get just your whole palate is flooded with this really rich, sweet, cherry, syrup kind of note. Vanilla mixed in. beautiful, like, sweet confectionery cherry. Then there is like a roll towards the oak note. Then you get a ton of barrel char, oak right in the center of the palate, like right as a through line, right down the middle of the bourbon here. That oak note has a bit of a stringency to it. It's quite powerful, this oak. So it's like barrel char and oak mixed together. Nice sweet oak note there in the background. And there is a transition somewhere toward kind of middle to late palate of that cola note. So that cola note kind of comes back, which I really, really like. Fully mouth coating, so absolutely covers the palate. I can still get it a lot on my cheeks here. So right in the cheeks is kind of where this one really likes to hang out, on the tongue, cheeks, underneath my tongue. Really saturates the palate. And then at the kind of the tail end of the finish, there's like that that kind of bourbon phenomenon or what have you that happens where it kind of sucks the kind of moisture out of your mouth. Kind of like almost like drying there. So this is just a fantastic bourbon. As you guys probably already know, Stagg Jr., and in this case Stagg, this is some of my favorite bourbon of all time. I can't really think of anything other than George T. Stagg that would beat this out for me in terms of like best bourbon that I've tried. Absolutely love this stuff. So now that my palate has had a chance to acclimate a bit, let's go in here for a second sip. Second sip, here we go, guys. Cheers. Whew. That's pretty hot. I love it though. It's so bold and so like flavorful. This time I took a really like long, big Kentucky chew. Got the flavor kind of mixed all around my palate. It's almost overwhelming. It's so much flavor. Right off the bat, again, it's like a wave of that cherry, kind of confectionery cherry note. Nice and sweet. Really powerful. Mixes in with that vanilla. Definitely a little bit of caramel and butterscotch, but those are almost kind of like back burner flavors. This is more vanilla cherry, cola, and a lot of barrel char. The center or the mid palate of this is all barrel char. It's like the most char I've ever experienced in a bourbon. It is so off the charts on the char kind of flavor, but I love it. And I could just imagine how well this would pair together with some smoky barbecue, like some brisket. That would just be slow cooked brisket, or like maybe even some slow cooked like pulled pork. Just be fantastic with this dram. So absolutely beautiful bourbon. So like flavorful and nice and rounded as well. I could just like, that's the dangerous part about this. I could drink this all night, and it is, again, 66.1% or 132.2 proof. So definitely shouldn't do that. So yeah, this one's an absolute hitter, guys. I would absolutely recommend any day of the week. Any of the Staggs or the Stagg Juniors, if you see them on the shelf, especially if they're close to MSRP, snap them up. They're fantastic bourbons. All right, so that's going to finish up the review here on the Stagg Batch 22A. Thank you so much for tuning in. Kyle, if you're watching, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. All right, guys, until the next one, may your sales be full and your drams be fuller. Cheers.